Stephen A. Smith talk about it. I've seen Shannon Sharpe talk about it. And that's what I just don't understand is they work for ESPN. So why are you hating on a product?
People out there that's been contributing to the WNBA. What was Shannon and I saying? We were saying, do y'all see these numbers?
You won't believe the numbers Sue Bird just dropped about WNBA ratings. She's not just talking, she's schooling Stephen A. Smith and anyone else who's doubting the league. But here's the real shocker. It's not all about Caitlin Clark. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Sure, Clark brought in astronomical numbers. We're talking 2.5 million viewers for a single game. But guess what? Even after she left, the WNBA is still breaking records. Sue's not holding back, and she's got the stats to prove that this league is more than just one player. Let's talk about the Caitlin Clark effect. When she stepped onto that WNBA court, it was like someone flipped a switch. Suddenly the league was on fire. We're not just talking a little bump in popularity here. We're talking a full-on explosion.
Are astronomical. She is a big draw.
Yeah.
She brings in all the things. We know this, we've said this. And yes,
You know those merch sales? They didn't just go up, they skyrocketed. We're talking a 450% increase. That's not a typo, 450%. Clark's jersey became the best-selling across all sports, not just women's basketball, all sports. She was outselling NBA stars, NFL legends, everyone. But here's where things get messy. Not everyone was thrilled about this rookie sensation. Imagine you've been grinding in the league for years. You've put in the work, paid your dues, and then this new kid shows up and suddenly she's all anyone can talk about. That's gotta sting, right? And it did. The tension on the court was thick. Veteran players weren't just letting Clark waltz in and take over. They were getting physical, calling her out. Clark faced 6 technical fouls in her rookie season. That's unheard of for a newbie. It's like they were saying, hey, you might be the new hotshot, but you've got to earn your stripes.
Nonsense about things that Caitlin was doing wrong when, in my personal opinion, she was doing nothing but going out there and playing great basketball.
Meanwhile, the fans were losing their minds. Social media was blowing up every time Clark touched the ball. You had die-hard Clark supporters ready to fight anyone who looked at her wrong. Then you had the old-school fans defending their favorite vets, saying Clark was overhyped. But here's the thing. This wasn't just about one player versus the rest of the league. Clark's arrival was shaking up the whole WNBA culture. The league had never seen anything like this before. The attention, the drama, the sheer star power. It was all new territory. And you know what's wild? This was just the beginning. All this Caitlin Clark drama, it was about to open up a whole can of worms that nobody saw coming. We're talking about issues way bigger than just one player or even one league. Just when you thought the drama couldn't get any bigger, Sue Bird entered the chat. She's not just talking about Caitlin Clark. She's exposing something way deeper in the sports world. What truth is she bringing to light that's making everyone uncomfortable? Sue Bird, a WNBA legend with 4 championships under her belt, decided to shake things up on her podcast. And let me tell you, she didn't hold back. Bird started calling out some of the biggest names in sports media. We're talking Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharpe, the heavyweights. But why? What's got Sue Bird so fired up? Here's the deal. Bird's saying these guys are straight up hating on the WNBA.
Stephen A. Smith talk about it. I've seen Shannon Sharpe talk about it. And that's what I just don't understand is they work for ESPN. So why are you hating on a product?
The story is the story, Sue Bird. What was Stephen A. Smith and Shannon guilty of exactly?
Can you believe it? She's pointing out how they work for ESPN, which broadcasts WNBA games, but they're out here trashing the league. It's like a pizza delivery guy telling everyone not to eat pizza. Makes no sense, right?
With Stephen A. and with Shannon, there's an aspect of them like defending their stances on her. Like, we were right about Caitlin and this is our defense.
I'm only addressing her points about me and what she said in relation to the whole Caitlin Clark story.
But Sue Bird isn't just throwing around accusations, she's coming in hot with the stats. Even without Caitlin Clark on the court, WNBA viewership is still breaking records. That's huge. It's like the league leveled up and stayed there.
The WNBA playoff semifinal games, where Caitlyn obviously is not in it because her team lost, are still breaking records from previous WNBA years. I believe the record was at like 930,000 overall viewership, but it got up to like it peaked at like 1 point something.
Bird's making it clear this isn't about one player. It's about the whole league stepping up its game. Now here's where things get really interesting. Bird drops this bombshell. The real issue isn't Caitlin Clark at all. It's not even about the WNBA's success. It's about how people talk about women's sports. She's calling out the double standard. When men's sports have a star player, it's all celebration. But when women's sports do well, suddenly everyone's looking for problems. You know what's wild? Bird and her co-host Megan Rapinoe start breaking down how female athletes get treated differently. They're talking about how Caitlin Clark and other women in sports get hit with criticism that male athletes never have to deal with. It's like they're playing the game with extra rules no one told them about.
Sue Bird calls out ESPN host for, quote, hating on WNBA playoff ratings after Caitlin Clark's exit.
And just like that, the whole conversation shifts. We're not just talking about ratings or rookies anymore. We're diving into the deep end, looking at how society views women's sports as a whole. Bird's not just defending the WNBA, she's challenging the entire sports media landscape. While Bird took aim at sports media, another storm was brewing. Suddenly, players weren't just talking about unfair coverage. They were pointing to something far more sinister.
It's not that they can't be critical of certain things. They can have their opinions. But that's where I don't understand.
What dark undercurrent in women's basketball was finally coming to light? The answer? Racism. And not just a little bit. We're talking about a full-blown explosion of racial accusations that rocked the WNBA to its core. It's like someone lit a match in a room full of gasoline. Alyssa Thomas, a veteran player with 11 years in the league, dropped a bombshell that left everyone stunned. She said, "I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments, from the Indiana Fever fanbase. It's unacceptable, honestly, and there's no place for it." Can you imagine playing your heart out on the court and dealing with that kind of hate? It's mind-blowing. But here's where things get really messy. People started pointing fingers at Caitlin Clark fans, blaming them for this sudden surge in racist comments. It's like the whole league was caught in a twisted game of hot potato, with everyone trying to pass the blame. That's when Sue Bird jumped back into the fray, and she wasn't pulling any punches. She shut down the idea that this was about Clark or her fans. Nope, Bird saw something much bigger and way more sinister going on.